Rev up your engine. RAV4 that's got the shakes. Now when it shakes in drive. First thing we're going to check is the motor mounts. So what we're going to do is go under. You want the wood so you don't bend anything. You want it to push up on the oil pan here. Now here's the trick. You got to center it so it's only touching the oil pan. If any of the mounts are broken, what'll happen is when we jack this up, you'll see the motor will rise, but the body won't follow it. But as you can see, in this case, the body and the motor go up. This mount was bad. What would happen was this would raise, the body wouldn't until you get high, and you'd see a hole in here. But there are no holes. You can see, you jack it up, the whole thing goes up. So there's nothing wrong with the mounts. Now I kind of figured that because he said sometimes it shakes, sometimes it doesn't do anything at all. So we're dealing with a problem that can come and go. And from my experience, that's either a vacuum leak or, more commonly in these, because it's a Toyota, a slightly weak torque converter. Now this is an automatic transmission car. Inside is a torque converter. When you have the car in park or neutral, the torque converter isn't physically acting with the transmission, taking the power from the engine and giving it to the transmission. So basically it's not doing anything. So if it doesn't shake when you're in park or neutral, but it does when you're in drive, when the torque converter inside the transmission is taking energy. And as they wear in these older Toyotas, they'll shake in drive, not park and neutral. You want the truth of the matter? My old Celica, 240,000 miles, it's been doing it for 10 years. And I just shifted into neutral with the AC on, whatever. I don't want any shaking. I don't care most of the time, but if my wife's in the car, she doesn't like the shaking. I just put it in neutral and it stopped shaking. I've been doing that for 10 years. So let's look at some data here. First, we'll check for obvious vacuum leaks. So here we go. Intelligent diagnosis. Here we go. Yes, it knows what it is. Okay, it's doing its thing. Now, the only thing that shows a problem is the seat restraining system. You got a problem in the airbags and in the pre-tensioner. Who cares? He already knew about that. He buckles the seatbelt. It works good enough. What we're looking for is running problems. So, back to the ECM. We're going to check data. The coolant's normal because I just started out. And as you can see, it has no cylinder misfires. There's nothing wrong with the engine. As I expected, it's probably the torque converter. That doesn't affect the engine data. That's the transmission data. Now he was asking me what kind of shape the timing belt was in. So we'll go to the ignition advance at idle. And you can say it's pretty stable at 7.5 degrees. If that thing had been bouncing around, it'd mean the timing belt had stretched. Now, it's an old car, it's a 99, but it's still in good shape. And I just asked him, because it was his dad's car before his, he said the timing belt was changed at 170. Now it's got 252. That's not surprising, it's still in good shape. And understand one thing about this RAV4. This is a non-interference engine. If the timing belt breaks when you're going down the road, it'll stop running. Won't hurt anything. You just put another timing belt on. Doesn't damage anything. This isn't like a Nissan that will destroy the engine. It's more an inconvenience than anything else, but it shows it's still in good shape. The injector, the millisecond, it's stable at idle. It goes a tiny bit, 2.94, 3.07. Expect that small amount of differential. When you have 252,000 miles on your car, the long-term fuel trim, it's adding 6%, which isn't bad, but what I'd advise on this, to put some fuel injector cleaner in the tank. Drive it around, come back and check the long-term fuel trim. If it goes closer to 0, that meant the fuel injectors are dirty, which with 252,000 miles wouldn't surprise me at all. Well, let's shift it in gear to see if it shakes much. Well, guess what? The car likes me. Okay, it's like the lions that don't like the lion tamer. They're afraid of them. Obviously, it's afraid of me. It's not going to shake now. But from all the things that I know, there's only two things that would really do it. One to be a dirty fuel injector, and the other is the torque converter's a little bit worn. So, there's these genius guys in New Mexico. One guy's a mechanic, works at Sandia Labs in New Mexico. They know what they're doing. They came out with a combination oil and fuel cleaner. We don't care about the oil cleaner now. This doesn't have any problems with this. These ATS guys came out by studying what kind of carbons build up in a car. And they found out that the stuff in the fuel injection system from fuel is different than the carbon in the burning part of the engine that has just oil, because oil is hydrocarbons, so it's fuel, but they leave a different type of carbon deposit. So they made something to get rid of all the carbons in your fuel system, especially fuel injectors. It doesn't have any PEA because they found something better by using a $35 million machine and checking all kinds of chemicals till they came up with this. So we're going to put it in the tank. Now, interestingly enough, this ATS carbon cleaner for fuel, to me it smells like turpentine. I love that smell. It smells really nice. We're going to pour it in the tank, and it goes. The whole can. Now, of course, it takes time for any cleaner to go to work, but let's take it for a 10-minute drive. We're gonna set it up here. We'll back up, data stream, unselect them all, and we're gonna go to long-term fuel trim, and we'll check out the oxygen sensor monitor. So now we have all of those. And guess what we're gonna do? We're gonna record them and take it for a ride. Now, if you notice, I got it in D2. That's so it's cruising at 4,000 RPMs. The cleaner is going to work best the faster you drive with the RPMs. It does not matter the speed of the car, but at the same time, I don't advise revving it up to 4,000 and leaving the driveway. You want to be at least moving down the road. And here we are, safe and sound back. Let's analyze this data. Well, look, it's already gone down to 1.53%. And at one point, it went all the way down to 0.75%. Okay, I have to say it. I'm amazed. Now, you're supposed to wait until you use the gas. I put it in with half a tank of gas. If you really want it to work as fast as possible, put it in a quarter tank of gas. I can't wait to see what this thing is after he drives it about 100, 200 miles. Next time I see him, I'm going to hook this thing up and see what the heck it's playing at then. But obviously, the stuff works. And here's an interesting side bet here. Interestingly enough, he used Seafoam. He hadn't seen my videos telling people not to use it. And I said, did it do anything? He said, didn't seem to do anything at all. Well, these guys in New Mexico that invented the cleaner that I'm trying out, they tested various cleaners. And they said, amongst the ones that worked the least, the worst cleaners, Seafoam was one of the worst. It didn't do hardly anything at all. Now, sadly, their stuff says, for professional use only. I can't see why anybody else can't use it. They follow the guy's directions. But they have figured the chemical that breaks down the carbon from gasoline. Now, like I say, they also have one that's an oil system cleaner. But the oil system cleaner, you only run for 15 minutes in the oil, then you turn it off, change the oil. The fuel stuff you leave in. But they figured out what cleans the carbon inside the engine oil, which is a different carbon that is created when the fuel is burnt. If this oil stuff works as good as the fuel stuff, hey, stay tuned. I'm going to be testing it out. I'm amazed so far, but hey, they said that the oil stuff, if anything, works better than the fuel treatment does. If he tells me in the future it's not shaking, that fixed it. We know it's fixed the fuel trims, right? So it's running better. He'll probably get a 1 mile a gallon better gas mileage or something. It'll run better. If the shaking doesn't go away, he's got a somewhat weak torque converter, just like in my Celica. And I'm too lazy to take the transmission off and replace it because it shifts fine otherwise. If it shakes too much, I put it in neutral and it stops shaking. Now for the front end, it shakes at speed, so let's jack it up. So we jack it up and put it in neutral. We're gonna do the usual check. See if there's any play. Not really. Spin the tire. See if it looks out around. Not really. Tread's good, but I can see a slight feathering. There's a little bit of feathering. Now this does have the original struts on it. Obviously they're slightly worn, and that can cause a slight misalignment and shaking. Alignment doesn't always make your car pull to one side or another. It can also cause shaking. It's not out around. But I noticed one thing, there's no wheel weights, and there's only one tiny wheel weight on the inside. The other side's the same, there's no wheel weight on the outside. Look inside. Inside has no weights at all. So my first advice is, take it to a place that does dynamic wheel balancing. Just get the front tires balanced. And I'll bet that'll stop the shaking. It doesn't occur till 70, 75 miles an hour when it's really spinning. And since one doesn't have any weight and the other only has one tiny one on the inside, I've also found from experience that it's almost impossible to perfectly balance the tire with one tiny little weight on one inside. When I was a young mechanic, we used to balance them. We always used 4 weights. There'd be 2 weights on the outside and 2 weights on the inside. Now, modern stuff can work better with dynamic balancers, but still, I would say just get these balanced. That'll probably stop his shaking entirely. And here's some bonus questions and answers. Medic Shock said, I'm looking to buy a new car. I got a 2010 Honda Accord LX with 160,000. I'm looking to upgrade. I'm thinking I'm going to go with 2021 Honda Accord 2-liter turbo. What are your thoughts? Okay, Honda makes good cars. And that's the 2-liter turbo. I don't like the little ones. The 1.5s, no. But the 2-liter turbos, I would personally just get a 2-liter without a turbo. If you had the turbo, they don't last as long. But this is a gigantic but. You got a 2010 Honda Accord with 160,000 miles. This guy's got a Honda in Tampa who just got 1 million miles out of his. Why do you want to get rid of a car that runs perfectly fine with only 160,000 on a Honda? That can go a lot longer than that. I mean, if you got it, you want to get a new car, that'd be a decent one to get. Just realize that 2.0 turbo is not going to last as long as your 2010 Accord that has no turbo, no GDI, no nothing. They will never last as long because of all the pressure that's inside them. The faster you spin with the turbo, got a GDI system on it, there's more pressure. The engine's going to wear out faster. That's just the way that it goes. If I were you, I'd keep your Accord. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.